Special service training in school.
There was a 6. Everybody's in their seat? We couldn't. Yeah. Good evening and welcome to the Board of Education September 20th meeting. This is our monthly meeting. This is our first full meeting now that we've actually gotten school started. Hopefully everybody's been in class and board members. I know that we have a very exciting agenda because we will also now resume those recognitions, not only of staff, but students and programs. So that's exciting for us. And as I say that, we will need to be conscious of our agenda this evening because our recognitions are time certain at 6:30, and then our public comment order of the day is at 7. So let's begin. I've called the meeting to order, and now it is time for our roll call.
Ms. O'Connell?
Here.
Mr. Broderick?
Here.
Ms. Street Stewart?
Here.
Ms. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Risberg?
Here.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Kong Tao?
Yes. Thank you very much. Everyone is present at our board meeting this evening. Our first item to consider is always the order of our main agenda and our consent agenda. I am aware that there are 3 items being pulled for separate consideration under the consent agenda. These are found on page 66, 67, and 69. Contracts and administrative items have been asked to be pulled. Are there any other items? If not, is there a motion to approve the revised consent agenda? Second.
It
has been moved and second. We will vote on the consent agenda.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Broderick?
Yes.
Ms. Street Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Risberg?
Yes.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Kong Tao?
Yes. Thank you very much. We now have a consent agenda to follow. Our main agenda before you this evening, I've also already indicated the 2 items that are time certain. Is there a motion to approve the main agenda?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We will vote now.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Broderick?
Yes.
Ms. Street Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Risberg?
Yes.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Kong Tao?
Yes.
Thank you. Now that we have approved that main agenda, we will follow it. Our minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Education of August 16th, 2011 are before you. Is there a motion to approve, or are you bringing before us any corrections to be made in those minutes?
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We will vote now.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Broderick?
Yes.
Ms. Street Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Risberg?
Yes.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Kong Tao?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Those minutes have now been approved. Committee reports from 2 committee of the board meetings will be presented to you at this time by Vice Chair Jean O'Connell. The first meeting was August 23rd, and then the second report will be brought from the meeting on September 13th. Director O'Connell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The board met as a committee of the board on August 23rd. The first item on the agenda was the impact of state legislation on the fiscal year 12 budget for St. Paul Public Schools. Chief Business Officer Michael Baumann provided a recap of the state legislature education budget settlement and how it affected St. Paul Public Schools, and he also provided a comparison of major revenues under current law and the various legislative bills. The state has made a budget shift from the 70-30 payment to a 60-40 payment, which adversely affects St. Paul Public Schools' cash flow. Staff is monitoring the cash flow on a biweekly basis, and the shift will probably necessitate additional mid-year borrowing by the district. Mr. Baumann went on to outline how administration recommends the additional $2.8 million in general fund dollars be distributed, with a split of roughly 70% to schools, 20% to district-wide departments, and 10% for school service supports. The recommended motion at that time was that the board accept the report and update.
I don't believe it requires any action on our part. Thank you.
We then went on to our standing item on strong schools, strong community update, and administration indicated they would provide a full report at the September 13th COB on the proposal for monitoring of the strong schools, strong community plan with monthly reports to the board on the various areas. The district-wide action teams will continue to meet through December, and administration is looking to schedule updates for the board in October and November. In January, administration will bring forward all recommendations from the various action teams. We had a policy update and looked at a presentation from the Administrator of Policy, Planning, and Intergovernmental Relations indicating that the Rights and Responsibilities Handbook would be sent to families soon. A reprint is being done, and minor changes to update it are being proposed, including the new Strong Schools, Strong Community Goals, a new superintendent's letter introducing the handbook, and an updated listing of board members. We then went into work session and looked at scheduled board meeting dates through August 2012. The proposed dates are as follows: February 21st, Board of Education team meeting. March 6th, Committee of the Board meeting. March 20th, Board of Education meeting. April 3rd, Committee of the Board meeting. April 17th, Board of Education meeting. May 1st, Committee of the Board meeting. May 15th, Board of Education meeting. June 5th, Special Board of Education meeting on non-renewals. June 12th, Committee of the Board meeting. June 19th, Board of Education meeting. July 17th, Committee of the Board meeting. July 17th, also Board of Education meeting, and July 31st, a Committee of the Board meeting. The recommended motion was that the board approve those dates for 2012.
So you've heard the recommendation from the Committee of the Board. Be aware that as the information that you've received in written form through your board book and what has been presented already acknowledge the revision of the August 7th date, which was in conflict now with National Night Out. So that's already been presented with Director O'Connell's report just now. So there's a motion to approve these dates with that adjustment. Any discussion? If not, we will vote.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Broderick?
Yes.
Ms. Street Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Risberg?
Yes.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Kongtow?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Those dates now can be put in ink, at least on your calendar. Please continue.
The last item on our working session agenda was approval of capital expenditure advisory committee members. We did this in two motions. That the board appoint to the SEAC the 6 individuals who were reapplying: Jamal Badasso, John Decker, Edward Driscoll, Amy Felice, Philip Peterson, and Richard Streeper.
Okay. You have heard the recommendation from the Committee of the Board to this Board of Education on the appointment to SEAC. Is there discussion on this motion?
I was just wondering if we could just take the second motion and do them all at once?
Well,
But it's up to you.
she has the motion on the floor now. Yeah. Okay. Seeing no discussion, we'll vote now.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Broderick?
Yes.
Ms. Street Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Risberg?
Yes.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Kongtow?
Yes.
So those persons who have served in this current year will continue.
And the second recommended motion was that the board appoint Jennifer Empolsky and Michael Rohr to the 2011-12 Capital Expenditure Advisory Committee.
Thank you very much. You have now heard this additional recommendation from the Committee of the Board. Is there discussion on this motion?
Thanks to everyone for their willingness to be involved.
Yes. A great appreciation for their taking the time. We will vote now.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Broderick?
Yes.
Ms. Street Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Risberg?
Yes.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Kongtow?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That action on appointments has been approved.
All right. So the last piece around the SEAC discussion was that the consensus of the board was to decline to make any additional appointments to SEAC at this time and to reopen the application process for additional applicants with an emphasis on expertise and diversity. And the deadline for new applications is September 27th. So anyone listening, or if you know of people who you feel would be good additions to the SEAC committee, we would appreciate you encouraging them to apply.
You have 1 week. Okay.
So that wraps up the committee of the board meeting from August 23rd.
And as you move to the next set of minutes, what we'll do when we're completely through both sets, we can take a motion to approve them as minutes. Dr. Carroll.
Thank you. Just a question about committee appointments through the deadline. Could we please request of the board secretary that when applications come in, that the people be informed of the date of the COB meeting where this will be considered, and then the date of the board meeting where a decision will be finalized, and how those relate to the meetings of the committee, so that they can align their expectations. And that, for example, we've done this in the past, once the committee has approved it, that staff at least be notified, so if a meeting is going to occur, they can at least come as a guest, even though not an official member, so that they don't fall behind.
Okay, Dr. O'Connell.
I was just going to ask Director Carroll to use her microphone because I hear that they couldn't hear you back there.
My vast listening audience, it wasn't that exciting.
But it is a process of a notification of receipt of your information and the information about the upcoming meetings. Okay, we'll follow through with that.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so we'll move on to the meeting minutes from the committee of the board meeting September 13th. Our first presentation was on the Strong Schools, Strong Community Monitoring and Reporting System. The Chief Accountability Officer, Ms. Walker, provided an overview of the monitoring and reporting system, outlining the process and the timeline. And the recommended motion was that the Board of Education approve policy review option B with adjustments to be made as necessary along the way.
Okay. Now, we are aware that board members, of course, know those details, and that is the recommendation of the committee of the board. Are you able at this time to give us a sense of, just a reminder of the fact that there were these two options, A and B, and the linear description, I guess, of those?
As I recall, and others can chime in if need be, or Ms. Walker could correct me if I am incorrect. There were two options on policy review, and the plan here is that on a monthly basis, we will be reviewing vision cards, which are the equivalent of our accountability system on various items. And following those reviews, we had two options. One was to, every quarter of the year, begin the review of policy on one group of policies, followed by the next quarter being the beginnings of the change in policies conversation, and the third quarter being the actual reading of policies so that they would be approved. And that would take us throughout the entire year with a lot of work being done by various organizations in administration. The second option was to say, let's look once a year at the entire policy book and say, based on the new plan and the implementation schedule for the coming year, what policies really should be reviewed in total, and begin that review process in one quarter and add to it, add policy review as needed on other items as they might come up during the year, rather than having this constant review with administration being involved in kind of a never-ending loop. Is that a fair discussion, Ms. Walker? So we opted for policy option B, which is the latter, and that is what the motion refers to.
Okay, great. Good job of
Non-never-ending loop.
the summary. Any additional discussion on this motion? We will vote now.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Broderick?
Yes.
Ms. Street Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Risberg?
Yes.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Kongtao?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Now we have that process in place. That's great. Okay,
All right.
please continue.
The second motion in regard to the monitoring and reporting system is a reference to the timeline for particular review of vision cards. And the motion is that the Board of Education approve the timeline for presentation of vision cards with adjustments to be made as necessary along the way.
Okay. You also have heard now this recommendation from the committee of the board on that cycle of the presentation of the vision cards. Is there any discussion on that? Of course, drawing the designs and everything would have been a little bit more challenging, but okay. We will vote now.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Can you
Dr. Hardy.
remind us about the public explanation of these? When is it happening? Is it already happening so that parents and families and everyone else knows what vision cards are and what we're going to be measuring, et cetera, et cetera?
Chief Kelly?
Madam Chair, Directors of the Board, Director Hardy, the first cycle of vision cards will be reported in October at the regular board meeting, and prior to the actual data being shared, we will provide an overview of what vision cards are, how they fit into the Strong School, Strong Community Plan, and then each month at both the COB and the regular board meetings, we will provide an update on that as we roll out the other vision cards.
Right. And just to follow that
Director
update will
Hardy.
be added to the website, as Director Carroll would probably ask if I didn't.
Yes, that would be usually something I would want to know.
Chief Kelly?
Madam Chair, Director Hardy, yes, we will add that to the website. Thank you.
Good to hear. Thank you.
All right, we will now vote.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Broderick?
Yes.
Ms. Street Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Risberg?
Yes.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Kongtao?
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. That motion has passed. This is a significant piece for our Strong School, Strong Community strategy, and I appreciate the hard work from staff as well as board members in being able to lift this up and provide the process. So now we can move forward. Please continue.
The next item on our agenda on the 13th was the administrative response to the Latino consent decree. And the purpose of this response was to inform the Latino Consent Decree Parent Committee of administration's response to the 8 recommendations the committee made to improve learning outcomes for Latino students and strengthen partnerships with parents. The responses included, the way I'm going to read this is the first item is what the parents asked for, and the second will be an example of some of the responses. So in the area of identification, assessment, and placement, the recommendation of the parent committee was to develop and implement a comprehensive communication plan that informs LCD parents about their child's placement in the program. And the administration will provide a list of eligible students to the Latino Consent Decree contacts at each site, and where there is not a bilingual education assistant in a building, they will receive assistance and support from neighboring schools' bilingual education assistants. In the area of academic support, there was a request for stronger collaboration between home, school, and bilingual liaisons. And the Parent Advisory Committee and parents will meet 3 times a year with school and district administrations, including the LCD educational assistants, and those meetings have been coordinated for October, November, and March of this year. The third area is bilingual content support. Schools must ensure multiple opportunities for Latino consent decree families to engage in specific school curriculum activities that will lead to support for that education at home. And one example of the response is to offer Spanish-specific sessions for Latino consent decree families in areas of math, social studies, science, reading, and writing. The fourth area of concern was middle, grades 6 through 8, and secondary 9 through 12 grades. The request from the community was to increase parental knowledge on required and elective courses for graduation and advanced placement classes valid for post-secondary education. And an example of the actions include improving communications with parents, counselors, Latino consent decree educational assistance on appropriate placement of students. The fifth area was Latino culture, providing the Latino students with a solid knowledge and understanding of their cultural heritage and ethnic backgrounds. Actions to be taken might include promoting multicultural school nights in every school. In the category of Spanish materials, there was an interest in increasing the awareness of Spanish materials distributed to schools by informing staff and parents of materials at open houses, school academic nights, and parent-teacher conferences. In the area of parental involvement, the request was for inclusion of parents of Latino students or community members on all hiring committees for bilingual teachers or educational assistants. And administration will connect members of the advisory committee with the Human Resource Department and recruit parents of Latino students to advise on hiring staff. And the last item is collaboration with organizations and community programs to continue strong support from the district for the LCD Parent Advisory Committee. And the administration will continue that collaboration and look for opportunities to broaden access to individuals. So the recommended motion was that the Board of Education accept the administration response to the Latino Consent Decree report with the recommendation that administration support the list of items in the report and establish a timeline for implementation, and that opportunities for continued discussion be provided throughout the school year as they can be scheduled.
Thank you very much. Board members, you have heard the recommendation of the committee of the board with a description of those topics that were presented. Is there additional discussion on the motion? Director Hardy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thought we put verbiage in that motion, not only the timeline, but to a call specifically on follow-up, because that was concern raised from both of our committees in the past, American Indian and Latino Consent. Did I misunderstand that?
Well, that may be the opportunities for continued discussion be provided throughout the year? Or
I guess I'd like that to be stronger language, because the concern was raised from parents, and actually some talked to me after our meeting last week, that they want to be sure to get that follow-up.
Okay.
They want to hear specific, say, we're going to talk in the winter, we're going to talk in March, let you know where we are in the process of implementing these requests. So I guess I want to see that language included.
So if there is language to amend this, probably with, it may not require much, either a timeline for implementation with specific
Months, quarters?
or deadlines or something like that, or,
Right, specific dates are within a timeline of follow-up.
Okay.
So the parents can know this is where we are and
Okay.
Targets.
target dates.
Right. For implementation with specific target dates?
Yes.
Okay.
That works for me.
Board members, is that acceptable to everyone? I think that's what also was probably intended, but as you said, it probably articulates more specifically what we heard. Ms. O'Connell, are you hearing?
Yeah, my recollection is that the establishment of the timeline for implementation and opportunities for continued discussion, and perhaps the word continued could be changed to follow-up discussion, was set up because we weren't exactly sure on each item what the timeline would be. So to establish when it should be followed up on was not necessarily, real germane, but that we would request that timeline be put together and that follow-up conversations continue to be throughout the year, but that they be established based on the timelines rather than us dictating that they happen at particular times.
Okay, Chief Kelly?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Hardy, I believe that staff will be meeting with the Latino Consent Decree parents on a monthly basis, And so we can provide, based on that first meeting, a timeline for when issues will be addressed and provide written updates to the board as appropriate from those meetings.
So again, if that's what we know will be happening, would you still want to amend this language? I think just the simple amendment seemed to be acceptable to everyone. Would that cover it?
Yep.
Okay.
Do one is
Please repeat it, Ms. Polsas. Okay.
Okay, I'll pick it up from an establish a timeline for implementation and that implementation be with specific target dates for follow-up be provided.
And then opportunities for, and then it just continues. Okay.
Thank you.
It looks like we're ready to vote now.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Broderick?
Yes.
Ms. Street Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Risberg?
Yes.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Kong Tao?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That motion has been approved.
So the committee of the board discussion continued with a beginning discussion on the pay 2012 property tax levy. The Chief Business Officer, Mr. Baumann, stated that the state sets all levy authority for schools. Schools can only levy for what is authorized by law. And the pay 12 levy is for school year 2012 to 13, or our fiscal year 13, and will be paid by taxpayers in May and October of 2012. Several levies have an aid penalty, which means that if the district does not levy for the required amount, they lose the correlating state aid. Changes to the levy are due to several factors. The state has increased authorization for other post-employment benefits, otherwise known as OPEB, for districts that sunset or limit retiree health insurance premiums, of which we are one of those districts. Reemployment insurance increased due to more layoffs and extension costs. The Teacher Retirement Association, TRA, increased due to a 2010 pension legislation that addressed the health of the retirement fund. Health and safety increases are being made to address environmental, air quality, and safety issues. And adjustments made for new and existing debt excess adjustments, and refinancing. The Chief Business Officer indicated administration is proposing the following ceiling for the payable 2012 property tax levy for St. Paul Public Schools. The general fund levy to go up by 9.2%. The community service levy to go down by 4.2%. The debt service levy to decrease by 6%, for a net increase of 3.6%, or $4,328,038 over last year, or a total levy of $126,072,576. So the recommended motion was that the Board of Education accept the report of the 2012 payable property tax levy and set the ceiling for the pay 12 levy at $126,072,576. And I'm going to turn this over to Chief Kelly, because as in the week since our committee of the board meeting, there's additional information, and we want to present that to the board prior to moving on this recommendation.
Chief Kelly, can you give us an update on the information that we were expecting following our meeting on Tuesday?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Director O'Connell, as you indicated at the close of our COB meeting, it was mentioned that we were still awaiting information from MDE on our maximum allowable ceiling. We have received that information, and actually the ceiling allowed by MDE actually came in higher than the recommendation from our Chief Business Officer and staff. And so we would like to pick up there and provide that update. Our Chief Business Officer, Mr. Michael Baumann, will present a brief PowerPoint presentation to update you, and then bring forward again our recommendation.
Mr. Baumann, welcome.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Chief Kelly, ladies and gentlemen. Purpose of my presentation this evening is to provide the Board of Education an update to the 2012 payable property tax levy, now that we have the MDE data, in order to propose the ceiling for our Pay 12 levy that must be certified by the 7th of October. In order to share that information, I want to first show the MDE maximum allowable levy calculation so we understand what that number is. The proposed levy ceiling by fund, and I will walk from Pay 11 through the adjustments that have occurred. The reasons for the anticipated changes, though they have been stated in Director O'Connell's notes, and then we'll go on to next steps and make the recommendation. The chart you see now shows what MDE's what MDE's current assessment is for St. Paul Public Schools as the maximum allowable levy. This represents a 5% increase over last year's levy. So they came in at $127,884,998. So this chart here will explain what the adjustments were. If you look in column A, that shows you the funds by category for the levy. The column B shows the Pay 11 actual by category. What you see in column C is what the Committee of the Board presentation depicted based on a staff estimate without MDE's numbers. And to clarify, due to the state shutdown, the timeline for MDE to conduct their analysis of the financials for St. Paul Public Schools was delayed. And so in order to move the process forward, the chief budget analyst and the financial team did a estimate, and that's what was presented at the Committee of the Board. The next column, D, shows the MDE max allowable levy, which is the same numbers you saw on the previous chart. The next column is based on our analysis of the numbers and a review of MDE's maximum allowable, shows the adjustment that the financial team from St. Paul Public Schools applied. And then in column F shows the difference between Pay 11 and what we propose based on the adjustment after getting the Minnesota Department of Education's assessment. And then again, G shows just the percentage difference there. So although we have looked at Minnesota Department of Education's assessment, we are recommending that we remain at the $126,072,576, with making an adjustment to the general fund portion of the levy and remaining at approximately a 3.6% increase over last year. Next chart. The reasons for change have not been any different than what Director O'Connell articulated earlier. And the levy schedule moving forward, just want to highlight that November 29th would be the public comment opportunity for this levy. And the rest of the items there just post out the levy schedule. And then finally, the recommendation that the Board of Education accept the report on the payable 2012 property tax levy, the recommendation that the ceiling for the Pay 12 levy be set at $126,072,576. That concludes my presentation, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ballman. Chief Kelly, it is good to have received this information so promptly, that the timing worked out between the two meetings, and that our motion for the recommendation of last week still says that we will not raise that amount to what has been reported to us through the Department of Education. So if you would like additional comments, this would be helpful now.
Madam Chair, members of the board, as Mr. Baumann has indicated, we had the potential to readjust our recommendation to go up to the 5% that was recommended by MDE. We felt it prudent, and we know that it is the sentiment of the board, that if any adjustment is made, that adjustment would be downward at some point before December and a final vote is taken. So we are comfortable at this point remaining with our original recommendation that was presented at the CLB meeting. However, as Mr. Baumann, I believe, indicated through the timeline, and I want to reiterate here, there will be additional opportunities both for the board to have further discussion as a collective regarding the ceiling, and then there will be a public hearing regarding the tax levy that is proposed in November, with the final vote on the ceiling being taken in December. So while this sets a ceiling tonight, there is certainly additional opportunity for the board to discuss this matter prior to a final vote having to be taken in December. Thank you.
Are there questions or comments with this motion before us? Director Carroll.
Two, please. Kathy, if you can go back a slide.
You might want to speak a little louder.
Right, do this, like lean over? Right, sorry. We're trying to rearrange these mics so this doesn't happen, but in the meantime, thank you on this one. Can you explain why the state's maximum allowable levy is a couple $1 million higher than administration's estimate, please? And then the second question, if I may, because I found this very relevant in our committee of the board discussion, to explain what are the implications of not doing the 3.6% levy increase.
Okay. Mr. Baumann.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Carroll. A couple things with regard to the levy process that would cause a difference is we here at St. Paul Schools don't have all the adjustment data that MDE gets. So as what we did initially was our best estimate of that, and as if you do a comparison, you can see we got pretty close. But when they get their data and they look at the numbers, I can point to for sure one area, debt service, where there is we have our schedules, they have information on the schedules, and we have to go back and forth to verify the numbers, and those generally get adjusted. All the levy categories are subject to adjustment based on how the levy was collected in the last cycle, and so the timing becomes an issue as well. So that's why you will generally usually always have a difference, and why and then the authority for the state is the Minnesota Department of Education. And so once those issues are settled, they have a maximum allowable, and that's what that number represents. The St. Paul Public Schools, through the Board of Education, has the opportunity to adjust based on the overall financial situation of the district. The other thing is enrollment numbers. We use a projection process to determine enrollment numbers, and so MDE has, using Mars reports and other information, also look at enrollment numbers. The other thing is, in a staff estimate, we'll apply an inflation factor, and so will the MDE. And so unless we are in exactly the same assessment, there'll be some differences. So that's why you see a higher maximum allowable. Also, over time, we will be sending data back and forth, financial data back and forth between MDE and our financial statements that could cause an adjustment as well. So where we are right now, and based on what MDE has provided us, their assessment puts us at a maximum allowable of $127.9 million, if you round up, or 5% increase over pay 11. And I apologize.
The second question was, What would the impact be if the number was lower?
The Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Carroll, on that end, what we're saying here is there's varying kinds of impacts, but at the end of the day, it's about what goes into the general fund. With fiscal year 13, which is what this would impact, as we look forward, and again, this becomes a timing issue, but the bottom line impact is if we reduce, we take money out of the general fund. And so it changes our ability to finance parts of the plan. But as we look at it today, and because we have a biennium budget, our assessment is that we don't have to go as high as 5% over last year, and we can still fund the Strong School, Strong Community plan based on the guidance that we have from the superintendent.
Thank you.
Other questions from board members? Director O'Connell? And then heads were going back at the same time. Director Hardy, okay.
Go ahead.
Mr. Baumann, I wonder if you could just talk about the timeline issues, because I think it's difficult for people to understand why we do a levy now and we don't have a budget discussion until April while the city and the county are doing their budgets and levies at the same time.
Mr. Bellman.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Director O'Connell, the city and the state and St. Paul schools are not on the same fiscal year program, and specifically when it comes to the levy, that becomes a challenge because we're trying to satisfy three disparate timelines, and so they essentially, my understanding is that they set the timeline as they do to attempt to accommodate best they can the three different entities, which is I'm sorry, not the state, but the city, the county, and St. Paul Public Schools.
Thank you.
Okay, Director Hardy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can we go back to slide 6? I have 2 questions and a comment. Ms. Baum, I know you said in your presentation that the reasons haven't changed for us, but this information hasn't been shared with the public. Could you give us a high level, please, of the changes, any percentages or dollar amounts you can attach to the changes, please?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Bowman.
members of the board, Director Hardy, starting with the first change, OPEB, our levy opportunity over the last 3 levy cycles has gone up, and that's due to the legislation that authorizes those bargaining units in St. Paul Public Schools that have a sunset clause on retiree health benefits to allow us to get more of a authorized fund called the OPEB Pay-Go Fund. And because more of our employees have become eligible based on the negotiation process of establishing those sunset clauses, our pool has gotten bigger, so our portion of that fund has gotten bigger. So I don't have the numbers in front of me, but my recollection from Pay 10 is about in the $4 million range. Because we have increased through the reason I just articulated, we are now somewhere in the $13 million range. So that's one. Intervening to that was, I think we went from 4 to 8 to 13, and we'll plateau pretty much at 13 because we have all of our bargaining units now established with that sunset clause. With regard to reemployment, the more layoffs you have in an organization, the more reemployment costs. So there's some slight increase there. With the Teacher Retirement Association, the increase in the 2010 pension legislation actually essentially for us created a calculation increase, so we have to have more money in that fund to offset a situation that developed with regard to the retirement fund. Being a public fund, there's a lot of issues, not just with school systems, but other systems, and we're trying to offset that without, in a proactive manner. The legislature is trying to offset any issues that might arise there. With regard to health and safety, my recollection of the numbers there is an increase from about 3.5 million to almost 6 million, and that's each year you have some variation in that particular levy due to needs that are spoken to there: environmental, air quality, safety. There's changes that occur, and we're trying to keep up with those changes and adjustments. And then finally, more broadly, just adjustments with existing debt. We in fact are going down in debt, so that's overall not an increase, but we have refinancing requirements that we have to deal with in the debt service, and when you look at all the adjustments across the multiple not levy categories, but each levy within those three categories, overall, with the general fund ones, we've had to increase.
Great, thank you for that. I'm assuming that last bullet also has something to do with the change in state aid payments, I would imagine, right? The second question, Madam Chair, and for my comment, are these reasons that MDE had in mind when they allowed us to increase 5%?
Mr. Boatman.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Hardy, yes.
Okay, thank you. So the comment, Madam Chair and colleagues, to the public is I want to emphasize as a discussion here, as Chief Kelly mentioned, that whatever the vote will be, what was it, 3.6 maximum, we are open for input. And you can give us input prior to November 29th, but we want to know what you think about this proposed tax levy for the pay year 2012. With these reasons in mind, knowing that the Department of Education knows what's happening in school districts, knowing, again, the changes in the state aid payment to 60-40, as people have been seeing in the media and described. So I just want to be sure the public keeps that in mind as they think about what we choose to vote for and approve tonight, and as we move toward the final approval in December. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hardy. Of course, these are statewide concerns. All boards are addressing this now. And as Chief Kelly had mentioned earlier, there will be opportunities for people to directly provide input. I am very cognizant of the fact that we are at our order of the day, and so if there are additional questions, we could take action on this item, or if you have continued, can you signal if you have additional questions, then we will resume the discussion following the recognition time.
I have a 10-second request only.
Okay, please, Director Carroll.
Per getting ideas or input from others, it would be helpful if on the web, of course, when this information goes up, some of that background information be included so that we do not have an entire conversation about all kinds of things for which these dollars may not by state law be used.
Okay. We will try to make sure that the information that's posted is as helpful.
Just background information.
Okay. Board members then, are you ready to vote?
Yes.
You have the recommendation before you. We will vote now.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Broderick?
Yes.
Ms. Street Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Risberg?
Yes.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Kong Tao?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That action has been approved. We now know what our ceiling is, and we will move forward in the process to continue to consider options for us. Chief Kelly, we now need to move to our presentation of recommendations.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this evening we're pleased to recognize outstanding district employees and students. I believe that most of our staff and at least one of our students is with us this evening, so I would ask that as you hear your names called, that you would briefly stand so that we could acknowledge you, and then when I complete all of the names and recognitions, we'll ask that you at that time come up so that the board members can shake your hand and personally acknowledge you. And so I will begin this evening with our staff who are being recognized, and that presentation begins with Heather Pope. Ms. Pope been named the Social Worker of the Year. She is a social worker at Expo and is the 2011 School Social Worker of the Year, and that award is presented by the Minnesota School Social Workers Association. Oh, yes. Hi, Ms. Pope. She has been with St. Paul Public Schools for the past 11 years, and prior to working here in Minnesota, also was a social worker and teacher in the Houston Independent School District. And I believe Ms. Pope is joined this evening by our lead district social worker, Kathy Lombardi. Yes, and Expo Principal Darren Urama.
That's good. Okay.
Thank you. Our second staff recognition is Rebecca Tennyson, who is a fourth grade teacher at Paul and Sheila Wellstone Elementary, welcome, who received the first place award in the elementary level division of the Thrivent Financial Foundation sponsored 2011 Personal Finance Educator Award. And she was honored for her creativity in personal finance education. Thank you. And I believe she's accompanied by Angelica Von Empren. Yes, there you are. I honor you. Who is her principal, by the way. Our third staff recognition is Kate Alexander, a teacher at Phelan Lake Mung Studies Magnet, Diane Johnston, who is a teacher at Groveland Park Elementary, and Sharon Overland, who is a teacher at the Heights Community School. This group of teachers received the second place award in the elementary division of the 3M-sponsored Innovative Economic Educator Awards. And these three teachers are now invited to attend the annual Econ Fest celebration on October 20th, 2011 at the Federal Reserve Bank, where they will be presented an award and honored for their innovations in economic education. And I don't know if Becky Pedersen was able to, oh, yes.
Behind.
Good evening. And then finally, Jamin McKenzie, science teacher at Battle Creek Middle School, has been selected as a 2011 Minnesota finalist for secondary teachers of science by the Presidential Awards for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching program. As a state finalist, Mr. McKenzie will go on to vie for the award at the national level. And I believe that, now I'm going to try this name because I can never pronounce it. Tony Selbacek is accompanying Mr. McKenzie. There we go. Close enough. Okay. Chris, Tony.
Very good.
That's what happens with the substitutes. I'm sorry. Okay. And then we'll move quickly along to our student recognitions. I believe that we only have one student here tonight, and that is Selena Erstad. Hi, Selena. She's a student from Highland Park Senior High School, and she won the first place at the State History Day competition in the Senior Individual Documentary category. Selena represented Highland Park and the state of Minnesota at the Nationals competition in Washington, D.C. this June for her project titled The Hetchy Controversy.
Hetchy, yeah.
A debate of conservation versus exploitation. So congratulations for that. And I just do want to check. We do have Jennifer Lohr and Evie Harper Goderis, who are students at Open World Learning Community, who also won a first place in the state history competition. I don't believe they're here, but I just did want to check that to make sure. And Eleanor Leader and Rose Wimberly of Ramsey Junior High School, who I also believe were not able to join us, but they did win also awards at the State History Day competition. And Michaela Yarosh, who is now at Central High School, but won her award while a student at Murray Junior High School. She was named the middle school finalist in the first Broadcom Masters Math Applied Science Technology and Engineering competition. So congratulations to both our staff and students who are recognized here this evening. And at this time, I would ask that you would come up with those that you've brought with you to shake board members' hands and get their congratulations personally. Thank you.
Rally around the flag. I wouldn't mind a spot over there. That's okay. Thank you very much.
Jocelyn Sims had a baby boy today. No. Don't spread rumors.
Jocelyn had a baby today?
And so, board members, you do have two sets of recognitions. It would be appropriate now to take action on these officially as the board.
Move approval, Madam Chair.
Then I would like to second that.
Okay, thank you very
Many
much.
congratulations.
Excellent, excellent. And as part of our, before we vote, let's clap and then we'll vote. As they're going out the door. All right, we will vote.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Broderick?
Absolutely, yes.
Street Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Risberg?
Yes.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Kung Tao?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And so because we moved immediately into that time for recognition, I'd like us to make sure, though, that we do take action on accepting these minutes of August 23rd and September 13th for our permanent record.
Madam Chair, we have a few more items from the September 13th.
Okay, then that would mean we go back to those two.
All
Thank
right.
you. Director
So-
O'Connell.
So following the conversation about the levy, we did have a standing policy update item, and the policy work group reviewed the policies on advertising in the schools and reported to the board that they had looked at examples of policies from other districts, and the board was provided with a summary of areas touched by the policies, which included the areas of ads, sales, and properties. The Administrator of Policy Planning and Intergovernmental Relations provided the board with an overview of the work group discussion and materials. And I just wanted to remind the board that we all have a homework assignment that is due shortly, because I just remembered it myself from that discussion. So if you remember to provide your input, the policy work group is meeting next week. Following that, we went into work session and had a brief discussion on standardization of language regarding schools, buildings, and programs. And it was noted that there are areas of confusion in how buildings and programs are referred to throughout the district. And we felt that this needed to be addressed so there's consistency in the application of names and locations across the system so that we don't confuse ourselves and our parents and our students. Support was expressed in bringing this to the board, and we asked that the administration gather information and bring recommendations to the board. And the last item was additional board meeting dates needing action, and I will read those. Actually, there are a couple other items after this, sorry.
No, but take your time, this is important.
So the recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the following dates as additional meetings for the board. October 18th, 2011, a special closed Board of Education meeting regarding labor negotiations from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. November 15th, 2011, a special closed board meeting regarding labor negotiations from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. November 29th, 2011, committee of the board meeting at 4:30. November 29th, a special Board of Education meeting for the levy hearing at 6 o'clock. December 7th, 2011, a special closed Board of Education meeting regarding superintendent evaluation from 3 to 5:30 p.m. And December 7th, 2011, a special closed Board of Education meeting regarding labor negotiations from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m.
You have heard the recommendation for these additional dates, and we are approving them because we have to make sure that we're posting them. So are there any questions about these dates? You do have them listed here, and of course, you'll probably hear them several times in a variety of forms. We'll vote now on these dates.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Broderick?
Yes.
Ms. Street Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Risberg?
Yes.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Kung Tao?
Yes.
Thank you very much. These are now dates that will be added to our calendar.
There were two other items on our working session. Meeting times with the Council of Great City Schools, Special Education Audit Group were assigned, and Director Broderick asked that EMID be added to the agenda of the October 4th Committee of the Board meeting.
And just for the purposes for public information, EMID,
EMID is the East Metro Integration District, and Director Broderick serves on their board as well.
thank you very much. Okay. The board members, that does conclude the presentation of those meetings. Is there a motion?
So moved.
to accept these? Thank you.
Second.
We will now vote.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Broderick?
Yes.
Ms. Street Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Risberg?
Yes.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
Ms. Kung Tao?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Those are now part of our permanent record. We will have Chief Kelly introduce the superintendent's report. We will proceed as far along as we can until we come to our public comment time at 7 o'clock.
Madam Chair, members of the board, tonight I will begin our report with a summary of our 2011 summer school program. That will be followed by a brief update on the first week of school for 2011-12. I'll briefly note our recently released MCA test results and end with our human resources transaction, which will require board action. This summer, we offered programming at 26 sites along with other residential and special education sites. Overall, our attendance did show a decrease from last year. We're still analyzing the decline, but we believe factors include increased recruitment efforts and enrollment at the high schools for evening high school and extended day for learning, EDL, for credit recovery. Another factor may be that more students took advantage of community-based programs and camps offered during the same time as we offer summer school. Work has already begun to collaborate with Parks and Rec Department as well as other city and nonprofit organizations for our out-of-school time, including summer session 2012. One bright spot this summer was in our online class offerings. We had 222 online courses taken, with most students taking one class and a smaller number taking 2 classes. Our online credit recovery program was restructured this year to support students and increase their completion rate. Students met with content area teachers at least once per week, with many students meeting twice per week to get help in their classes. This blended model provided more face-to-face time with teachers and, as a result, increased credit completion. The result was a 46% credit completion in 2010, moving up to a 70% completion rate this year.
Very nice.
So during the first week of summer school, we were also able to retest 132 students in grad reading and math, and that was before the state government shutdown on July 1. These test opportunities were given to those seniors that were eligible to graduate after summer school and only needed those tests in to graduate. So at this time, that's a brief overview. I will ask Tracy Gower, our Director of Alternative Learning Programs, to present additional information regarding summer session 2011. Ms. Gower, thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, Chief Kelly, I'd like to present our summer school report. The purpose of this presentation is to provide an overview of the ALC Summer Session 2011, which provided programs and classes to increase proficiency and credit recovery for graduation. Eligibility and registration, secondary students, grades, those were last year's grades, 6 through 12, received letters from ALC recommending them to attend summer school, and it was based on the MCA 2010 test data. These letters were sent in March. At the elementary level, teachers invited students based on student assessment and referrals. All ELL students were also invited. And a final letter was sent in June to all students that were flagged on campus, and that was a total of 16,729 letters were mailed in June. And some of those flags also included counselors that were flagging students for credits. Some program highlights. Our first session was a 3-week session, June 27th through July 19th for 16 days. Students attended 6 hours per day, so they had a total of 96 membership hours. This is the same as previous 2 years, previous 2 years. High school students could earn 6 quarter credits. They took 3 classes, and summer session 2 was only high school credit recovery, and that was an additional 3 weeks located at Gordon Parks High School, but offered to all high school students in the city. High school students could earn another 6 quarter credits. Other program highlights, grad retesting. This was available to seniors that were credit ready to graduate, and they had the option to take this test. And we had 124 that retested for grad reading. 13 of them passed. 6 retested for grad math, 0 passed, and then we had 2 test dates. This was the very first week of summer school, so they did not have hardly any instruction at all. And this is a lower rate than normally in the summer for grad retesting, but it's about the same as some of our after-school classes. But overall, we did have 41 retested for grad writing, and 13 of those passed, and we offered that in August, and that was also a rescheduled date from the State Department. 85 students were qualified. I don't have this on the slide, but 85 students qualified to graduate in August based on these tests and credits, and 57 students participated in the graduation ceremony.
That's good.
Other highlights, this is a change that we've done this year. Our secondary ELL levels 1 and 2 remained at their secondary schools, and I listed the schools there, but in the past we took all the middle school ELL students and had a separate site, and same for high school, but we found that this model, keeping them in their schools, was a much better model for having them learn. Online courses, as Chief Kelly mentioned, we had students taking 1 or 2 online classes, which was a change where in the past some of them were allowed to take 3 classes, but then that was a lower success rate. They couldn't make 3 classes. So our completion rate did increase to 70% from 46%, just from changing that model of increased face time with the teacher. More instructional time was required of the student to attend and meet with the teacher. We also had the lab open every day, all week, so they could come in at any time. And then we also limited those numbers of classes. They could still take a face-to-face, a regular class too if they wanted to, but for online we limited that because we know about the success rate of online classes. The next slide is a showing of our buildings that were open for regular ed ALC. As you can see, in 2008 we had 47 buildings open for summer school, and this year we had 26, which is comparable to last year. And we did this, it reduced both indirect and direct costs to the district with facilities and staffing, and overall it did not really decrease our enrollment, so it's a good benefit to use less buildings over the summer. This slide shows the enrollment between elementary and secondary, and as you can see, we do have a lot more students attending the high school and middle school programs. We had credits at the high school, about 3,500 students were taking credit-based classes, and 74% of them earned one or more credits. Okay. And this last slide shows the enrollments from year to year. And we had the 2008 model was the year we had a 5-week program, and then we switched to a 3-year program. And so as you can see, our numbers have increased, which has helped student achievement by having them come to summer school.
I believe you meant to say 3 weeks, not 3 years.
Oh, I'm sorry, 3 weeks.
That would be a very long summer.
That'd be a long summer.
An endless summer.
And the number in the 2011, actually all of them, they include Gordon Parks and LEAP, which also run their own summer school. What's not included are the ESY, Extended School Year Special Ed students, and we had about 415 students in that program at 4 sites. And then our residential sites, Boys Totem Town and Juvenile Detention Center, and other residential sites that we offer programming for students, there were about 159 students that are not in this data. Thank you very much.
Great, we appreciate hearing this information. Chief Kelly, are there any comments you want? I will then recognize board members if you have any questions or comments. Director Broderick.
Could we turn back to the slide on the, oh, excuse me, could we turn back to the slide on the grad testing, summer grad testing?
Yep.
On the surface seems to be somewhat discouraging, but maybe you could talk to that a little bit in terms of why those numbers are like they are.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Broderick, the retesting of those students, we had 2 days to get the tests up and running because of the state government shutdown.
Okay.
And so we only tested the seniors that were able to graduate in August, so that they had the option and opportunity to test and pass and graduate. And so we sent out 158 letters to those seniors, and 130 ended up retesting.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, additional questions? Director Carroll.
So we sent 16-some thousand letters out, 16,000 kids should have been there. We got almost 14,000, if I remember your numbers correctly. What happens to the kids who were not able to attend or chose not to attend? That's number one. And two, overall, as well as tied to the 5-week to 3-week shift, what are we seeing in terms of improved outcomes, either in evaluations that are conducted during the summer or evaluations that are conducted during the subsequent year?
Ms. Gower?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Carroll, we know that some students don't attend for reasons we don't know. I mean, they could be high school students that have jobs. They may have other commitments. They're participating in a lot of different community programs that St. Paul Public Schools supports. And so those students that did not attend, we did have 81% attend from the numbers of letters that we sent out. We do follow their assessment. We do take assessments during the summer, and to do, like for instance, in the middle school, we've done a pre and post test for math, and we've done daily formative assessments so students know where they're at. And all of our curriculum and assessments are made possible by the help with the Center for Professional Development, who helps us put those together, and so they're aligned with the curriculum that's going on in this school year. We also train the teachers. How we know about the students' progress and completion. We've got the credit completion for high school. The elementary and middle school students, we know that students, there's a gap in learning in the summer, so we want to make sure that they keep reading. They have reading and math and writing. And so in the fall, you know, we're hoping that if they are in the summer school program, that shows in their assessments in the fall. And that's one thing that we're going to be taking a look at closer, is to evaluate that data a little bit closer.
Just following, when might we expect to see the results of the evaluation of summer school's impact on student achievement? I mean, timeline.
Chief Kelly?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Carroll, I think I would ask Chief Accountability Officer Michelle Walker to estimate that timing.
Good evening, Ms. Walker.
Madam Chair, Directors of the Board, Director Carroll, Chief Kelly. We actually have done sort of internal analysis of that at the request of either an assistant superintendent or a principal, et cetera. We have actually not done a comprehensive report at the district level of that, but I do think we have better information now that we have map testing and we actually have data on particular students in the spring prior to enrolling in summer, and we also have information for them in the fall when they take assessments. So we actually are going to be meeting with departments to figure out how to take that reporting to the next level. So I can't give you a date tonight, but that is information that we're actually better able to do now that we have our map testing.
I look forward to it.
Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation of this information. We are at public comment time, so
We'll resume though, Madam Chair.
yeah, we'll resume.
Okay.
So if you want to remain with us, there'll be some questions after public comment. Okay. And I don't know that we need to reset anything here at the podium. It should be all ready to go.
Yep.
Okay. We are now at the order of the day for our public comment. This is the part of the board agenda where the public has the opportunity to address the Board of Education regarding issues they wish to comment on or bring to the board's attention. All speakers are asked to sign in on the sign-in log, I have one of them here, and complete a sign-in form, including as much detail as possible, and provide a written copy of your presentation if one is available. The sign-in log and this sign-in sheet are at the table near the entrance door, and anyone who did not call in advance may sign up now. Please be sure to turn in the sign-in form to either the staff person handling the sign-in, and that's Ms. Chris Emerson there at the door, or Ms. Polsfus here, our board secretary, before you leave this evening. Public comment is the opportunity for the board to listen. It will not be a time to engage in dialogue. As a general rule, the board will not comment on or respond to any comments made by speakers. Speakers are advised, for their own legal protection and the legal rights of staff, that any complaint or issue related to personnel must be made in writing, and your public comments should not include names, titles, or location names for any staff. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. Speakers may not roll your time to another speaker. Each presentation will be timed. The black box on the ledge at this podium next to the microphone will show you your timing. The light will turn green when you start, an amber light and a chime will occur when you have 1 minute remaining. Several chimes will sound and the light will change to red when your time is up. When the light turns red, speakers are asked to complete your statement so you can allow the next person their turn to speak. Generally, speakers will be called in the order of the names received. However, if the sign-in log indicates that there are a number of speakers on the same subject, they will be grouped around that subject and called in the order that they signed in. Once that subject area has been covered, other speakers will then be called in the order they signed in. Please begin by stating your name only. No additional information, such as your address, is necessary. So with the sign-in sheet that I have right now, I will recognize these 3 speakers, and you please come up in this order. As each one then finishes, the second one can come up. Kevin Hoopenbecker, followed by Greg Copeland, followed by Bob Zick. Evening, Mr. Hoopenbecker.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Chief Kelly. First, I want to thank Michael Bauman and his staff for coming up with a levy proposal that's under what the state would allow us to levy against taxpayers. Last year's 9% increase really hit a lot of people hard, especially people who are out of work and those on fixed incomes. So it's refreshing to know that we're going to come in under that 5% and a more reasonable levy this year. Now, just as important to what we take in as a school district and what we spend is how we spend it. We know we have an embarrassing achievement gap. We saw the MCA scores come out this week, which were probably lower than everyone would like to see. So we have to make sure that the money, the resources that we have, is making it to classrooms and to help students, especially those that are struggling, so they can be successful in life. It's recently come to our attention that we are going to pay Superintendent Silva $40,000 in relocation expenses to move a few miles from Woodbury so we can feel good about having her live in St. Paul and supposedly be in touch with our community. I want to remind the board that the superintendent's worked in this school district for over 20 years. I believe her children have attended school in St. Paul Public Schools, so she is familiar with the needs of our school district and with the families that send their children to our schools. So it's just as important how we spend that money. In the course of a $600 million budget, $40,000 doesn't sound like a whole lot. But as I mentioned in my letter to board members last week, we can do some good with that money. You can get, for that $40,000, 3,600 hours of tutoring at $11 an hour, similar to a program that we have at Murray Junior High. You could hire 4 retired teachers to assist in classrooms in the district. You could hire back 2 teaching assistants. This is just, again, a couple months after we laid off 341 employees of the district, saying that we didn't have the resources. We could pay the salary portion of a new teacher. So again, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but any of these other uses for that $40,000 would do more to help kids in St. Paul Public Schools than paying the superintendent $40,000 to move just a few miles. So I hope you'll consider amending her contract to allow her to continue to live in Woodbury and not spend that money on relocation, but put it back into the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Mr. Huppenbecker. That sounds a little new. Mr. Copeland, that's for you. Yes. A little bit of a surprise there. Okay.
Things are really getting musical around here. That's good.
Okay, here we go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board and members of the public here tonight and those of you at home. I'd like to pick up where Mr. Huppenbecker left off. It seems to me that there should be some advantage for hiring a local talent. You know, you've hired a woman that to be your superintendent, to be our superintendent of schools, who lives in Woodbury. I don't remember hearing anybody coming to your meetings and public comments saying that we had to have a superintendent that lived in St. Paul. Now, I know in the past you paid for relocation costs. For somebody from Washington, D.C., I guess, you know, we can consider that perhaps reasonable. But for somebody from Woodbury who's worked for you for 25 years, it seems like an expense that, frankly, you don't need to make. I would like to ask you to rescind that contract amendment tonight. I know it was approved on your consent agenda on a motion by Director Carroll, to which all of you agreed, based on at least the minutes that were posted before this meeting tonight. I don't know if those are the ones that you actually approved. Maybe somebody made an amendment. I wasn't here. But if you're terminating 341 people from the employment of the district, and I know that's not specifically something you necessarily wanted to do, but in fact had to do because of fiscal constraints, then it seems to me the $40,000 is not something where your hands have been tied, to quote Director Connell in the Star Tribune editorial, which condemned this action, to pay $40,000 in relocation expenses. And frankly, if you saw the story that was in the Star Tribune about this very matter, you might have noticed that there were over 200 comments from the public, most of which were not favorable to this district's action on that matter. And it is an election year. And that's good, because sometimes people do things in election years regarding fiscal accountability that they might not do in other years. And I guess that's it? Or is that the...
Get to red.
Oh, geez, I got that all in 2 minutes. Surprise, surprise. The other thing that's troubling, and I think Mr. Hoopenbecker touched on it, and certainly you all know it, and so does the public. And it gets a lot of lip service, and it has for, I remember back in '99 when this district approved the levy for the first time, the excess levy, about the achievement gap. Well, according to your press release, which was pretty much of a spin here, folks, 50% of the kids are walking into school, except for the ones that are in the, 8th grade, and they're able to read. That is no victory. That is no victory. That $40,000 needs to go to pay some people to do some tutoring here to get more kids reading, it seems to me. You didn't make up the test, and I didn't either. We didn't take the test. The kids did. I think you ought to pay attention to the results. Spend the money in the classroom on direct instruction. The superintendent doesn't need to move to St. Paul. We love her anyway. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Copeland. Our next speaker is Mr. Zick.
Good evening, board. Good evening, interim or filling in superintendent. I'm Bob Zick. I want to talk about 6 items tonight. First, the tax levy. I caught part of it before I came down here, and of course, we record it. And even in that vein, now I'm not sure if it was 5% or 3.6. We'll study that and we'll analyze it. But with saying that, we have a $626 million budget around here, and these meetings are not archived. You can't get them. So in that vein, we decided to archive these meetings, and people can go on YouTube, Bob Zick Show, and they can see these school board meetings. I think with the kind of budget we have, we surely could have these school board meetings archived. Next, of course, touched on the superintendent's 40,000 moving. That being in Woodbury, she could be in touch with all the parents who have fled St. Paul and get a feel for why and what needs to be improved. Maybe it's not so bad that she lives in Woodbury. Center for Professional Development. That's down at 345 Plato Boulevard. Now, the people down there that I'm speaking about, all are senior $100,000 employees, salaries, benefits. So now they're being given a $35,000 bonus and $400 a month car perk. I don't know that that's something that the district can afford, especially with pushing the teachers out. Minnesota Comprehensive Achievement Score. Math, 41% proficiency. Reading, 56% proficiency. Right at the bottom. Our superintendent, if she was on one of the individual improvement plans that you put so many teachers on to force them out, I think she would be leaving the district. And finally, there's still that issue of hundreds of thousands of dollars in theft from this district that nobody has spoken to me about. I can't believe that we're so flush with money that that's not an issue. I think like your chief business financial officer, Michael Bauman talked about, his book is entitled A Just Fire. I think that's what this board needs to look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zick. Our next speaker this evening is Georgia Dietz. Welcome.
Board members, I came down here tonight just to talk about what it seems like is the topic du jour, and that is the $40,000 supplement for the superintendent. I find Ms. O'Connell's comments interesting, that you are against it, but the hands are tied. I'm sure that everybody watching this at home wonders, if a school board member can't do anything to change this, who can? So here are the people coming to ask you to change it. I'm sure that a lot of you, I can't count how many years each of you have been on the board, but I'm sure that when you're dealing with $650 million, $625 million, $40,000 is just like, why are we even discussing this? But to the average person, $40,000 is a lot of money. A lot of money to a lot of people, especially in St. Paul, where almost half the houses on the east side are foreclosed. So I would think that just to reach out to the common person whom you are supposed to be representing, that you would say we would be against this type of expenditure. And as Mr. Hoopenbecker said so eloquently, the number of hours of tutoring you could buy with this money is just surprising. So I hope you will change your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have no more names on the sign-in log. Are there additional names coming? If not, I thank all of the speakers who came and presented to us this evening. We appreciate the information that you provided. And we now bring to a close our public comment time. Thank you. We will resume our board agenda with the superintendent's report. So, Chief Kelly.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Hardy, was there an additional question on summer school?
Yes.
Director Hardy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you show the slide with the graduation information again, please?
We'll take a second here to open it up.
Actually, it looks like it's on the desktop.
Can somebody help up here? Thanks.
It was on the desktop.
Oh, there it is.
Those pesky maps.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then they closed down. And perhaps you could start your question.
Sure can.
While we're waiting for this. Okay.
Question is, while the wheel spins,
Yes. Okay.
do we have the numbers tonight, or can we get the numbers, not only for us as board members, but to the public, how the graduation, the number of students who graduated through the summer school program increased any of our overall graduation rates, so we can talk about graduation rates?
Chief Kelly?
The 84 extra?
Yes.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Hardy, I'm not sure that Ms. Gower would be able to give us overall graduation rates, and so I would look to Ms. Walker to see if that is available, or if that is a question we would have to answer following this meeting.
Madam Chair, directors of the board, Chief Kelly, Director Hardy, the graduation rate is something that I can forward with detail to the board through the superintendent. But with respect to your question, the only numbers that would affect our overall graduation rate from summer would be those students who actually ended up graduating in our summer graduation, because the students who graduated in June would be counted in our normal graduation count, and then those additional students, which I believe Ms. Gower said was 32. 85, sorry, would be now included in our this year's graduation rate. So I can give a full report through the superintendent on our graduation rate trends, but only those students would affect the overall rate for this year. Any student who completed credits, et cetera, through the process would impact future graduation rates.
Okay. Right. Thank you for that clarification. That information will be helpful. Thank you, Madam Chair. The reason I asked for this information to get to the public leads to my second question. So, and of course, Ms. Gower, you know I'm not the #1 fan of summer school here on the board, but what I want us to be able to talk to the public about, and our families about, is the benefit of summer school for proficiency and graduation. So my question is, with the numbers we've had in summer school in the last 4 summers, while I've been on the board, it's been 12,000 plus, why are we still going to get the information that's going to come out in the next part of the superintendent's report on the MCA 2 proficiency testing? So my struggle is, you gave us the numbers of buildings, and we're keeping some students in their building, which is like added cost and everything. The number of students, number of letters we're sending out, $7,000 plus. I was doing some math here. What kind of impact is that having on proficiency scores through the testing and on graduation rates? And I just want us to be accountable to the public for this, and I want to see what impact this program is having on those test scores and those graduation rates.
That is the question you may recall I asked earlier, asking for what are we seeing as the impact of summer school on student performance and achievement, and Ms. Walker said she'd be getting that to us shortly. So,
Ms. Kelly?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Hardy and Director Carroll, I believe that as we look at all of our achievement data in October, what I'm hearing is that we should include specifically and pull out any information that we could relative to summer school. But I would, just by anecdotal means, say, Director Hardy, that we believe as educators that any additional time that students have practicing and attempting mastery of their reading, writing, and math skills is time well spent. The city as a whole, and the district as a part of that, is taking a strong look for the coming year at summer learning loss and the issue of how much students are able to retain, but how much they lose because they don't have that daily interaction with an adult and with learning. The St. Paul Children's Collaborative, to which this district is a member, has actually allocated $300,000 of their annual budget to summer learning loss in particular as relates to the Promise neighborhood, and we are forming a collaborative with City Parks and Rec as well as other providers to look at how we can have opportunities for students to engage in additional learning from June, which is when summer school starts, all the way through the week before school starts back in August. What happens now is that during the month of August, there is a particular drop-off because many of the programs, including our own summer programs, but many of the other city and private programs end that first week in August or the last week in July. And so there are 3 to 4 weeks there where students are not able to participate in any or very few positive activities related to learning. So I do think that while we certainly should be accountable for the numbers, and we will get that to you in that October report, as a district, I think we do have a value on making sure that access to learning continues throughout the summer. And what we also have been able to see is while students may not get all the way over the bar to proficiency, they are achieving more gains. So getting closer and closer to that bar. Of course, we want to see, as you well know, I'm a big proponent of getting more students over the bar. But even if we can get them closer during that those few weeks of summer school, every bit helps to get them there.
A quick follow, Madam Chair, if I may.
Dr. Hardy.
When will we add science instruction to summer school?
Madam Chair, members of the board,
Ms. Kelly.
Director Hardy, I believe science is a resource question that we would have to address both through Mr. Bauman's office and also working with our chief academic officer. So that is a question I think we would have to get back to you on.
Thank you.
I know that Director Hardy asked that this particular slide be brought back up in response to his questions, but could we go to the slide that identified which students received the letters? Because that also, I think, helps us determine both at the elementary level and the secondary level the circumstances where we find students that are eligible then to participate. Could you talk a little bit more then, give us some better understanding about what each of these categories would be? For example, I know that there were some students that I personally know who attended summer school. There were issues of attendance throughout the school year, but they were able to catch up and get the credit recovery for time missed during the school year. And And even though you have the 4 bullets here, that wouldn't help us see that yet unless you provided further explanation.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this eligibility, there is state guidelines for ALC eligibility. There's 12 criteria, and one of them is not on track for graduation, which would be the credits, and then the other one is proficiency, ELL. There's a number of them, and what's not on here, which I probably should have had another bullet under the secondary, was the credits, because a student could be passing their grad tests but still need credits, right. And the counselors flag the students. And a lot of times the first round in March, we are still waiting for student grades to come in from 3rd quarter and 4th quarter. So there's still a lot of flagging going on to identify the students for summer school. And so there are students that are in the letters that were mailed in June. Those include the students that were flagged for credits. So they may not have received the first letter because they hadn't received their grade reports.
And then could you tell us then a little bit more about the elementary students?
The elementary students, our elementary program falls under targeted services, where it's a little bit more flexible on how you invite students because it can be a teacher referral and it's not credit based, but we do have the teachers refer students to summer school, and we have a registration form, and we also give out forms and brochures to the school so that parents can still pick them up and refer themselves.
So what would the benefit be to elementary students because they're not in the same track with the credit recovery? How would they benefit? As we said, the prevention of the summer learning loss, but could you describe a little bit more about that?
Madam Chair, members of the board, we actually have a reading and a math program, and then we had a economics financial literacy program for the 5th and 6th graders this year, which was an applied math program. Mm-hmm. But all of our curriculum is approved and written through the Center for Instruction and Professional Development so that it's aligned with the standards and the learning that's taking place during the school year. And so, you know, one of the things that we still want to make sure for the elementary students especially is that engagement in school and keeping them reading and engaged in school and still making summer fun. And so a lot of our curriculum is geared towards, you know, some of that social emotional, but also, you know, in a fun way with reading and math. So, but the teachers, with regards to registrations, the teachers know the students, they're looking at the students' data, and they know who needs to attend summer school or our after-school programs, for that matter.
And then when they finish their day in summer school, would they be connected to other programs that were offered through the city or other opportunities?
There were a lot of different programs. We've got Discovery Club that they go to at the end of the day, or they have community-based programs. We've got a lot of different park and rec programs that they also register students. Community education, we've deliberately worked with community education so that we can schedule the classes so that they happen before summer session starts and after summer session, so that students have a whole summer full of learning and opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Any additional questions? Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Chief Kelly will continue.
Thank you, Ms. Gower. Our second item, Our second item is a report on the first week of school. And I'm happy to report that our intense preparation did pay off. We had a very successful, as we tend to always have, a start to the school year. New this year, our mayor and other elected officials, as well as City of St. Paul staff, joined the superintendent and board members and our own district staff at bus stops around the city. That was a very celebratory way to kick off the year, and everyone that has given us feedback said that they thoroughly enjoyed meeting the parents, helping the children get on the bus, or shaking hands of the walkers. So all in all, I think that was a good way to kick off the year, and we've had requests from others who did not participate this year to make sure that they were on the list for next year. So we will probably try that again and expand it. With the exception of 4 positions, all classroom teachers were in place on the first day of school. So kudos to our human resources staff for making that happen. The open positions represent only 0.23% of the 1,757 classroom teachers. So in addition to those 4 open classroom positions, there were only an additional 5 licensed positions that were still open on the first day. So all in all of our licensed staff were hired, and there was a priority on that, and so we thank Human Resources for making that happen.
That's awesome.
Of the 136 construction projects, and we outlined those in our preview to the opening of school, 126 of those were substantially complete by school opening. All of the remaining projects had only minor items to be completed that did not interfere in any way with the educational programs starting. You may have heard that there was some whiteboards, interactive whiteboards not installed. There were about 28 sites where that could not be completed prior to the start of school due to outside factors, not our own internal efforts. And that work is expected to be complete by the end of September. So once again, kudos to our facility staff who really worked right through Labor Day weekend to make sure that all of our schools were safe and welcoming when our students returned. And as always, we have to talk about food and nutrition. As you know, this year we expanded our Breakfast to Go program so that all of our students who wanted breakfast were able to eat breakfast. And so the result was an 18% increase in the total number of breakfasts served during the first week of school this year as compared to the first week last year. So that was in 2010. During that first week, we served 57,482 breakfasts, and this year that number rose to 67,936.
Say those numbers again, please.
It's like really large numbers.
57,000. I always get freaked out if I yeah, no, you're right. Making sure I'm saying the numbers correctly. 57,482 in 2010, so a year ago, first week, versus 67,936 for our first week in 2011, this year. And our director, who has a new title now, but I'll use the old title, Director of Food and Nutrition Services, Jean Ronnie, really has championed this effort to make sure, knowing our student population as she does, that students have access to breakfast and really start the day with something in their stomachs, because so many of our students don't have that, and we know that there's a correlation between students having a nutritious breakfast and having the energy to get through the day and have their brains totally engaged. And so she has really shepherded this project along, and this increase is just phenomenal, and obviously that shows that there was a need. On the first day, I do know that our principals gave you a bag, whether you wanted one or not. Even if you said, I ate at home, well, have some juice, be ready. And so there was really a push, and a lot of kids went and grabbed that bag and went through the line, and they really were hungry, and they really needed that. And so I think these numbers show that this is a program worth our investment of time and resource. And so we're pleased that families are being able to take advantage of that. And then lastly, as always, the big back-to-school issue is around transportation. And so the opening of school went well with no significant transportation problems. We're happy to report. We are now providing transportation to 83 public and non-public schools within the city of St. Paul, and then about a dozen or so special programs outside the city of St. Paul. During the first 2 weeks of school, we performed 17,000, I love these numbers, 17,592 route trips. And only 2%, which is really a good number, but not as good as our chief business officer would like it to be, but 2% of our route trips were reported as arriving late. And as we looked at those, they were almost all related to significant road construction activity all around the city of St. Paul.
It's summer.
And that was the largest cause of the delay. We had a big deal on the first day of school where the mayor was positioned, fortunately, I guess, at one of those heavy construction zones where there were a lot of buses coming and going and children darting across the street.
And so was Councilmember Bostrom.
Councilmember Bostrom was there as well. He actually directed traffic, stepped out into the middle and directed traffic. But as a result, and I think this does speak to both the district and the city working well together, that construction zone and the markers for that, they were able to move that up a few blocks from that very heavily traveled bus intersection there, so that it is much more safe, and I actually go that way to work, and it is actually much more calm and much more safe than it was on that first day. So again, that speaks to our collaboration, all on behalf of our students. And then, due to the first day handouts that we did at the bus stops as well as our own schools, we ordered 327 orders for school bus safety materials were delivered. So lots of students were getting the information, taking home to parents about how to behave on the buses so that there wouldn't be behavior problems as we move forward through the year. So those are just a few of the highlights, and I know that all of you were out and about during that first week, and so we thank you for that support, and we continue to hear good things. People are excited to be interacting with the students. The kids are engaged already on these first 2 weeks, and so we're looking forward to a good year.
Board members, I know at the sites where you may not have only been there for the first day of school, but perhaps throughout the week, I would like to recognize the significant number of contributions that also came to our buildings and our programs through a variety of our community partners. We had the opportunity to hand out additional school supplies. Some students received new backpacks full of supplies. And in at least 3 of the schools that 3M was a significant partner, every student at that school received those materials. And so I hope that we're able to continue to send notes of appreciation to those partners, because those contributions were significant, and we saw it all across the district, so that was exciting. Would any of you like to comment on your experience that first week of school? Okay, please.
Sure. I mean,
Ms. Carroll.
Well, the fun thing was, right?
Yeah.
So I was over at Obama, and what I love, and in what I love, first of all, this is not unique to the first day of school.
Right.
What I especially love is all these kids running into school. So Kit Hadley from St. Paul Public Libraries and I were trying to hand out pencils, and they were just like shots past us. It's like, guys, free pencils. I have one. I'm ready. I'm fine. And just, it was awesome. And then former board member and current Ramsey County Commissioner Tony Carter was inside with the breakfast-to-go bags. It was great. And the buses, I mean, I know we have great buses, but it's great to see our great buses and our drivers, it all working. I mean, there was the coordinator saying, you go here, you go there, everybody's going just where they were supposed to go. Kids were extremely well behaved, even on the first day of school on the buses. Lots of kids helping each other, holding hands. We had walkers, and we had so many parents. I mean, we were all
I was going to say lots of parents
all
in the
over
buildings.
town, every color, shape, and size of parents walking, driving, biking with their kids to school. It was, I've never seen this much of it, that much physical activity on the first day outside. So it was just, it was awesome. Well done, everybody.
Anyone else? Director Hardy?
I was at one of our newer co-located schools, Open Road Learning and Creative Arts. It was a fun adventure. As now we have mostly new size and age students in that Wellstone building.
Finding their way. Oh, fun.
We learned the proper way to go up and down the stairs, and Mr. Serial can talk about that along with other people. It was fun watching older people learn that new system and everything. But I really have to compliment Principal Peterson and her staff for the work they did. It was a bit of confusion because there's 2 schools and a new building, and where do I go? Where's my school? Which floor are we on? They did an excellent job of, here's where you go to the elevator, here's where you find your floor, do you want me to help you get there? And I saw a lot of that happening, a lot of the staff helping the students get to where they needed to go. But what I especially liked, and I mentioned this to Ms. Ronnie during our reception with our district leaders prior to the board meeting, was her nutrition services staff in the building, the manager and one of the great workers there, because they were at the cafeteria going, you guys, you get free breakfast, you get free breakfast, because the students were just rushing off to their rooms. Oh, we get free breakfast, because it's new to creative arts this year. Open World Learning had the breakfast to go, but creative arts didn't. So it was new learning for them. And then the final piece that was especially neat before they went into their classrooms and then went around to the classrooms to welcome everybody was Open World. They always, creative arts, they always have like a first day of the school year gathering of all the students and the teachers and staff. And so it was just nice to sit in on that and listen to the teachers and staff, orient the students to their new location and the great view of the Mississippi. It was blue that day. It was really beautiful that day. So it was a rewarding experience that morning.
Well, we thank you all for your time, and we know that that excitement's going to continue probably until the very first, very cold day. But it really, I think, I too agree with comments that were made. There were a lot of parents present and accompanied by younger brothers and sisters. So the siblings were also in the school, and they were learning from, their older brothers and sisters or the friends of the brothers and sisters about what you do. So lots of like little instructions on, well, no, this is what you do here. So I do appreciate my experience not only being in the elementary schools, but I also went down to Kellogg. Staff did an incredible amount of delivery work and carpet laying and things like that over the weekend so that they would be ready for school on Tuesday. And it must have just been phenomenal because we know that there's good reports about how things went very smoothly on that first day. So thank you to everybody who helped with the opening week of school. Director Hardy.
Madam Chair, thank you. Before we leave, I did have one question for our Chief of Staff. Is there a formal feedback system either at the school building level or here at the district level for students and parents and families to weigh in on the start time changes, what's working, what's not working?
Chief Kelly.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Hardy, I would have to say that there is not a formal mechanism to weigh in other than we've been receiving emails. And so all of our email addresses are there, but I don't think that there is a formal mechanism. I would say that as we move forward with the school year, I know that our Chief Business Officer is looking in terms of his KPIs at the timing of all of the school start time changes and how those can be moved up and aligned more closely, probably not perfectly, but more closely to the school choice season. And as we look at the start times for high schools, which will be a significant public engagement effort coming up in the next month or so, beginning in the next month or so, that will carry over some months, I'm sure that we can develop a mechanism that will also capture elementary and middle school start time issues.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, Ms. Kelly, because I think that'd be very helpful, especially if there's a way for people who want to provide feedback to do it anonymously. So whether that's through the internet or
From
written
wherever.
or something, right? Just so they can provide their candid feedback on, hey, this is great, it's been wonderful, or here's something to be tweaked. I've had a few requests for that, so that'd be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hardy. Chief Kelly, please continue.
Madam Chair, the last item by way of update is the release of the MCA scores last week. As you're aware, the state released the results of the 2011 MCAs, which stands for the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessments, and we received positive news coverage. I'm pleased to report that SPPS broke a 4-year trend of incremental changes with a 4% increase in reading proficiency, which equates to approximately 700 more students reading at grade level. And for those of us who do this every day, we are exceedingly glad when one student is proficient, but 700 more means a lot to us.
It's a great point of
Certainly,
comparison.
it is not where we want to be. We want 100% proficiency for all of our students, but breaking that pattern of incremental change speaks to the focused efforts of our teachers, our support staff, and everyone throughout the district who always had this as a priority, but who've become even more energized and focused around this as a goal. And so our reading gains also surpassed those of the state, which only witnessed 2.3% increase in the percentage of students proficient in reading. The 2011 math assessment was significantly changed from last year, and proficiency measures both in St. Paul and across the state declined. We don't say that as an excuse. It's simply a fact that the first year after a new assessment, there is typically a dip, but we will use that as a baseline for future year comparisons, and we're confident about the direction that we're going with our math curriculum. And just as we saw with our reading curriculum and support, staying the course, not changing from year to year, has made a difference. So while those results are not what we had hoped, we believe that we are going in the right direction. Although the achievement gap remains an issue for us, as it does across the country, there was a consistent but modest reduction in the disparities between Caucasian students and students of color in reading. Significant gaps remain in math, and all of the information about this year's results that we have currently available is on our data center, which you can get to from the main page of our website. I am not going to go into greater detail tonight. The meeting on October 18th will include a comprehensive review of our achievement vision card, which includes all of our MCA scores, grad results, and MAP data, as well as the AYP results, which we believe will be released by MDE on September 30th. And then I would also just mention with respect